in future meetings. There we go. Recording has begun. Meeting is now called to order. And, Chatindi, the agenda that you sent me just jumped right into discussions about potential acquisitions and voting. Is that where you'd like to start?
Yes. Just before we get there, I think we can just go through you can go through the agenda, and then we can all approve of the agenda, and then we can do some introductions, and then finally dive into the opportunities.
All right. Well, so really the agenda is to discuss potential acquisitions, and then you had mentioned that you would like to chat a little bit about the book Life After Google. That really wasn't on the agenda per se, but if you would like to do that, we can make that an element of our discussion. And really, those are the only topics that I see on the communications. Yes.
Just to recap on what Frank was looking to portray here. So we're going to be, he's done the call of order. We're going to be doing the introductions in a few moments from now. And then I'm going to be doing the main statement of why we're having the board meeting here in the company. I'm going to be doing the deal presentation. We're going to discuss a strategy that I have in place after the initial deals that we're going to be pursuing in the next few months. We're going to be discussing the entity structure with Ted. He's the lawyer that's an external lawyer that's going to be explaining a little bit about the corporate structure that we're about to set up. And then we're going to be we're going to vote on everything that we spoke about. It's a very short meeting. We're not going to be following Robert's rules today. It's just very standard, pretty quick, and we should be out of here in the next few minutes. So just without wasting much time, we can start with a few introductions. Bernt, you can go first.
I put myself on mute, and I suggest there's some really bad background noise, so if you don't speaking, you should probably be on mute. So my name is Bernt Bodal, and I'm originally from Oslo, Norway, but I've been in the United States for a long time. I've been there since 1978. I've been involved as the CEO of the company up to just a couple of years ago of American Seafoods, one of the largest fishing and processing companies in the world, based in Seattle. And I'm still involved in the company as an owner and on the board.
Thank you very much for that, Bernt. I'm Chidi Banda. I've had the pleasure and opportunity to meet everybody here. And just to recap about myself, went to school for economics, minored in audio engineering. I'm a software engineer. Launched a few successful ventures that I own 100%. Lightyear is a company that everybody's very aware of and what we're about to achieve here. And without wasting much time, I'll ask Daisy to do a few to introduce himself.
Thank you, Chidi. Yeah, my name is Desi Mayo. I started off having an undergraduate degree in business administration with an emphasis in accounting. I went to work a long time ago for a Big 8 accounting firm called Coopers & Lybrand. Worked for many clients on that and got out of that and worked, then actually went to work as a controller for one of our clients. I got involved with them until it was sold, the business. And then I have worked in a number of different places, about 12 years as a chief fiscal officer for the county in Alaska. Worked as a corporate controller for the Alyeska Pipeline Service Company that transported the 800-mile pipeline. Got to work with major oil firms on that. Came to work as a CFO for the third largest rural telephone company in the United States, and got them diversified, if you will. and it just had a number of experiences. We looked to do some acquisitions in the telephone company, and then I went to work for Crowley, which is a maritime company. It's based out of Jacksonville, Florida, and we looked to acquire a number of different companies in Alaska, in Hawaii, and in the Caribbean. And I just saw where they opened their new port in Puerto Rico the other day, and I got to be part of that a long time ago in the initial planning stages of that. And Chitidney, I think that's about all. I live here in Seattle area.
Awesome. Thank you for that. Thank you very much for that, Daisy. Frank, you can go ahead and introduce yourself.
All right. Well, my history is definitely steeped in finance and technology, a computer science bachelor's and an MBA. Worked for IBM for 5 years, selling and financial justifications for mainframes down in Texas, and then for PricewaterhouseCoopers before Coopers was merged here in Seattle for 5 years. One of the M&A transactions with Pricewaterhouse was a $4 billion consolidation roll-up of companies in the Seattle area. You may have heard names like Ernst, Pay and Save, Lamont's, Yardbirds, Shucks Automotive. They were all consolidated in a roll-up that I was involved with the due diligence and then the what they called the divisionalization of the new entity. So that was kind of like my springboard to big M&A. The investors invited me to join that organization, and that became the launching pad for my consulting firm in the 80s that is in existence today. I've launched 7 startups, the largest of which was financed by Kleiner Perkins Caulfield and Byers down in Menlo Park. We brought in 22 million of venture capital to make that business go. Long and interesting story, but the residual of that company is now part of WebMD, which some of you may be familiar with. And I've launched, 7 other companies and sold those, coached hundreds of companies. I also teach at the University of Washington. My most recent courses that I've taught for the last 3 years have been blockchain and cryptocurrency, and just had a variety of kind of entrepreneurship and kind of business involvement from the inside and the outside. So that's a quick sketch. Chitindi, back to you.
Thank you very, very much. And I think next we're going to have Shane. Shane, feel free to introduce yourself.
I'm Shane Milburn, currently working for a company called Johnston Supply. We're a national wholesale distributor of heating, air conditioning, refrigeration. We have about 450 stores across the US and Canada. I run technology for Johnstone. Prior to that, I've been in a number of different industries outside of supply chain, manufacturing, spent a number of years at Intel, payments industry. So I ran a number of payment startups that we kind of grew into nonprofit space. So we had a number of donation platforms over the years that we kind of built on top of the payment gateway. And cybersecurity is a big focus of mine as well.
Thank you for that, Shane. Thank you very much. And then we're going to have Gerald next.
Morning, everyone. I'm Jared Powell. Currently I'm the CIO of Assure Neuromonitoring, which is a publicly traded healthcare firm. Prior to that, I ran Infinite Consulting for 15 years. So I was the founder and CEO, and I successfully sold that in 2020. Before that, I was the CEO of Planet Magpie, another large consulting firm that I built from 2 people to about 40 when I exited and started Infinite. And then prior to that, I was at Microsoft working on the Active Directory and Exchange teams. as well as worked on a project that ended up becoming the Windows Windows Live or login, the Windows login. So it's called Highlander back in the day. And then another project called One Bill that took over all the billing and stuff for MSN accounts and billing. I'm kind of a multi-tool, but I would say I'm a cybersecurity expert and just in general, just an infrastructure architecture expert in designing networks, and I've consulted across pretty much almost every vertical there is. I've spent a ton of time in the semiconductor industry, did a lot of M&A in that industry, all the kind of due diligence and analysis, as well as the integration pieces of financial systems. These are all international acquisitions to mostly in Israel and Japan. Yeah, and and my involvement with crypto is I actively trade it quite frequently, which has been a little bit rough lately, but outside of that, I know a lot about blockchain and crypto in general. So thanks.
Awesome. Thank you for that. Thank you. And then next we're going to have Patrick.
Hi, Jitendi. Hello, everyone.
Thank you.
Okay, well, I test my microphone, and my microphone's giving me some trouble lately. I'm glad to be here. I feel privileged to be here. I know Jared from going 15 years back when he was at Infinite in Silicon Valley, and I've recently met Jitendi, and I was extremely impressed with Jitendi's knowledge and motivation, and I immediately saw that he was the type of CEO that over my 28 years of being an attorney, 20 of which I've been a general counsel for IT companies, I've seen that Jitendi's basically the personality type that I like to work with the most, because he's the kind of guy that brings about success. And I just think that Jitendi has a great personality, and he's the right type of leader for us. Like I said, I've been an attorney for 28 years. I'm licensed in California. I'm licensed as a general counsel in New York, and also licensed in Arizona. I've worked as a general counsel or an attorney for IT companies from Silicon Valley to New York City. In terms of M&A activity, most of which, or if not all of it, has been with the companies I've worked for. Probably have done about 100 due diligence reviews in the last 20 years, which led to about 20 closed deals. Some of them international, most of them have been here in the United States. And currently I'm a member of a small VC firm, Cloudbreak Capital, and most of what we do is help broker buy and sell deals for IT companies.
Awesome. Thank you for that, Pat. And thank you for the kind words too. So we're going to just dive into the main statement that I have for today, as far as it pertains to the meeting and the company as a whole. So as we embark on the journey to be a Web3 leader, and our mission is, again, I like to set the standard as the world's first native internet marketplace, exceeding user satisfaction and trust. Security, like I said before, is where we start. And then security is a very huge role. It plays a very huge role in commerce. And security is performing very differently today. It's not a beneficial thing. It's an upgrade that should be supplied by adding new layers and passwords. That's not the case, and why security should be acting this way. It's portrayed as a SWAT team. It's introverted direction schemes. Antivirus patches are a huge thing today. And then software retrofixes are what's going on today. But that's not the foundation of what's coming in Web3, as most of us are very familiar. So security, again, is a foundation, and it's very crucial to any financial transaction. It is of course, the most basic component of any information technology. And in the business world, transactions are it's not an option. Transactions are the only way that economic growth happens and learning. So security, again, if you have a product and you're charging, like the current models today, you have a product, this is what Life After Google teaches, and then you're not charging people for that product, it's free. You don't really have a product. And if you're having investors and advertisers fund the project, it's not really a real business. So that's the main basis of Lightyear. So that's why we want to acquire these cyber companies first in Web 2. And then when we get to building our own blockchain and ledger, we're going to be exiting these companies. That's our basic strategy. And that's what we're going to be talking about. So without wasting much time, let's just dive right into the companies. I'm only going to be showing and listing only 3 companies today, because every other company we're looking at is basically the same and the deal structures are very similar. So the first company that I want to talk about today would be, I think it's called Pro Forensics. They do forensics, and the founder and CEO of the company is Mark. This company has no more than, so this is very standard. The company has no more than 15% of their revenue coming from one client, which is a great thing. The seller is going to be staying on board for 6 months after we acquire the company. There's no real estate included in the purchase. They serve a lot of law firms. So basically that's the company's demographic. And then the seller Mark worked for a very interesting agency, a security agency that's a parallel assistant to the FBI, called the U.S. Security Service Electronic Crimes and Task Force. So he left that and then started this cyber company, and they're doing forensics for law firms. Their revenue is right around $2,100,709. Their normalized earnings, based off the formula I'm using, it was about 500 and 100,000, 5,989. The spread is 25%. Our EBITDA offer was 3x. The deal structure is going to be 60% commercial debt, 40% seller is going to carry the note at a 4% interest rate, which is going to be, if we pay off that in 3 years, we don't have any payment penalties. The loans for 8 years, and that's the first deal, basically. I'm just trying to make sure I'm not missing out anything. The second deal, and we have three or two more deals very similar to that. The next deal is going to be a hardware reseller. Again, no customer has more than 15% of that revenue. The seller will be staying on board for a minimum of 6 months. There is no real estate included. They're leasing a very huge facility where they're conducting these transactions for. The seller is not limited to cybersecurity. So the hardware is in cybersecurity, but they sell different forms of hardware. And this is a broker business. So I believe if you took the chance to look at the Google Drive I sent out, more information on this company is very, very clear. They have revenues of $15 million. Their normalized earnings was about 1 million, which is we need to do a lot of due diligence there. And then my offer was $4 million, which they more than happy to take. The spread on the debt that we're going to incur. So 30% for this company will be commercial debt. 70% of the company will be financed by the seller at a 3% interest rate. The loan is going to be over 10 years. No prepayment penalties in the next 3 years. That's of course our anticipated exit. We're offering roughly, I think, 4 times EBITDA for this company. And the third company is in Oregon, right here in the Northwest. Has, again, great company, no more than 15% of their revenue is coming from one source. The seller will be staying for 3 years, which is very unique. There's no real estate included in this company. Most companies were not purchasing real estate in the beginning. They serve more than 100 clients, and they have that's in contracts, business to business, and they have more than 1,500 subscription customers business model. Their revenue is roughly 15 million. Normalized earnings is 4 million. The spreads on that revenue is roughly 12%. And our offer is going to be 3x EBITDA. The deal structure, same, 60% is going to be commercial debt. 40% seller carries the note at a 5% interest rate, paid over 8 years with no prepayment penalties for 3 years. So that's roughly the 3 deals. And every other deal we have, just to save time, is beneath these categories. So it's either hardware, it's either they're making technology, or it's either they're just fully cybersecurity and they're doing forensics and physical facility stuff in cybersecurity. So At this point, I would like to discuss a term I'm coining gunboat diplomacy for these companies. So right now, the business model that we're working with, I have a pipeline of businesses coming in. I have deal flow, and I look at a lot of deals and I'm making a lot of offers. Most of them, they're not being taken because we have a very strict model that we need to follow for this to actually work and for us to exit with a healthy margin for these companies. When we acquire 10 cyber companies, the model is going to dramatically change. If you remember the model we had when I was doing the first pitch, I listed about 10 industries that we need to be in. So for those industries, I've listed out a few companies that I've been studying for the last couple months. In my free time, I always study these companies. And these are the companies we're going to be acquiring. Whether they want to sell or not, we have to acquire these companies. And of course, we're going to make an offer. If they don't want to sell, then we're going to implement gunboat diplomacy where we force the sale. So that's the long-term strategy for Lightyear. And of course, we're going to have a lot of stuff on the blockchain, and we're going to be building our own ledger. And once we acquire these companies, one of them, which is GoDaddy, that I've been studying for a very long time, we're going to be transitioning the infrastructure and putting it on our ledger. So basically, that's how we're going to build a global marketplace. And that's the quickest way we're going to achieve our goal. So for now, we're building a lot of relationships in the financial space. We're building a lot of relationships with accounting and law firms and so on, and just nurturing our acquisition process, acquiring cyber companies. And with these, more than likely, most of the companies I'm seeing right now, we're going to be exiting. And we're going to talk about our exit strategy in a few moments from now. So, okay, so just to touch on the exit strategy a little right before we get into the structure of the company. So our exit strategy basically is going to be, we're doing two exits, an IPO, and we're going to be exiting all the company, most of the companies we're acquiring right now. So we're going to make them run effectively for about 3 to 5 years, and we're going to exit these companies. And looking at the deal structures I have in place, we're not going to be exiting with the sellers. Our exit is going to be strictly at Lightyear. We're going to be paying off all the sellers within 3 years by refinancing the businesses more than likely. And that's how we're going to pay off the sellers, and then we're going to do our exit. Okay. And then with the IPO, we're going to be doing an IPO based off what our main activities on the ledger technology. And once we achieve certain milestones and achieving those initial milestones that we need to be achieving. And then, okay, I just want to talk about how we're going to be making our initial revenue, how everybody's going to be making their initial earnings from our current activities in the short term, not the long term. So in the long term, as I'm financing these deals, most of them through commercial debt, I'm going to be overfinancing these deals by at least 20%. And that's how we're going to be paying the accounting firms and the law firms. And then the remaining, of course, we're going to be dividing that through the board. And that revenue will not be compensated based off the equity stake in Lightyear. So the compensation will be strictly based off participation, the level of participation that everybody's embarking on this on the activities. Now that we're looking at a lot of deals, and now that a lot of activities happening, I don't expect to dramatically expect everybody to spend a lot of time, not more than 15 hours per month, more than likely. And then our exit strategy, again, before I forget a few points there, in the next 3 to 5 years, that the exit strategy is strictly going to be based off the equity. That's based off the sale. So we have a strategic sale, keep in mind, and we have an IPO. The IPO, if we decide to stay on board, everybody has to play a very, very huge, significant role at that point. But for the short term, as we exit these companies through a strategic sale, yes, that's just strictly going to be based off the equity that we're going to be distributing today. Let me make sure I'm not missing any points. All right. Okay. And then I would love to discuss a little bit about the entity structure from Ted. Ted, you can tell us, you can introduce yourself and just tell us a little bit about the law firm we're working with and the services you're about to be providing us.
Okay, I'm Ted Kamen. I'm an M&A partner at Norton Rose Fulbright. We're kind of widely recognized as one of the top 5 global firms in the United States. We're nationwide. We have offices in most major cities. I, in particular, one of my focuses is fintech. I've recently worked on an insurtech deal, worked on a deal involving the potential purchase of a cryptocurrency platform or business, I guess you call it. I've got about 25 plus years experience doing M&A, including a lot of cross-border M&A. My largest deal was 24 billion, but I've also done plenty of smaller deals and plenty of deals in the tech space. And there you go.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. And then based off our conversations, we've had a few initial conversations. Just give us, based off the strategy, the exiting we're doing, just give us a short-term view of what corporate structure we're about to set up.
Yeah, so, and I expect that some of you on this, on the board have had this structuring kind of experience. Your main choice would be between a corporation as an entity or a limited liability company as an entity. The advantage to a limited liability company is it's a more flexible structure. It could also help you achieve tax accounting, so no corporate level tax. The advantage to corporation is it would be already prepared for an IPO, because you would need to have a corporation to do your IPO. And it's a less flexible structure, but it's a kind of, the flexibility can be a disadvantage in that more work needs to be done to put together an LLC, whereas a corporation's kind of already got a lot of default rules. A lot of people have a good working knowledge of how a corporation works. And so it's a kind of more structured entity that you could use. Talking with Chitindi, we thought that probably a corporation is the right choice for you as your holding company. The pass-through tax benefit of an LLC is unlikely to be a major advantage for you. You're not likely to be having dividends anytime soon. You may not have significant profits initially before your IPO. So the benefits of an LLC don't seem to be strong. And so probably a corporation is the way to go. Probably Delaware is the place to incorporate. And the idea would be you set up a corporation as your holding company, and then underneath it, all of these acquisitions are portfolio companies held by that, or subsidiaries held by that corporate holding company. We could talk about governance, but probably the governance could be mostly situated at the holding company level in terms of the board and the like, and where decisions are made. And what you do, I think, when you make these acquisitions is your short-term approach is to keep them as separate subsidiaries. That means their assets and liabilities, so to speak, ring-fenced. So if you found that there were unexpected liabilities in one of your acquisitions, it would not, so to speak, contaminate the other acquisitions. And then over time, you figure out what kind of synergies you might generate, whether you combine some of the companies you acquired or not, or whether you end up with other arrangements where the various acquired entities are sharing services or products, you're realizing synergies among them. So that, I think, is a rough idea of the structure that we might use, subject to any thoughts that you might have.
Awesome.
So basically a Delaware, I'm sorry. Basically a Delaware C Corp, maybe 5,000 common shares, and every time you acquire, you at least hope we can do a stock purchase agreement of the target.
Yes. Oh, so I think whatever number of shares you'd like, but you would, when we establish it, we divide up the equity, I think amongst you on the
Right.
board, if I understand correctly. Fairly simple, just common equity. Everyone gets a percentage. And Chitindi, I think, is doing great deals. So it looks like sellers are not really seeking equity in the holding corporation. His deal with sellers is that we control. And they're, the sellers don't appear to be asking for much in terms of minority shareholder rights. Since we will control the exit. We'll exit after we've kind of paid down the note. Sellers don't seem to be seeking, if you will, any of the upside we might get from the exit. They're happy to just be paid the initial purchase price. So what you essentially have is a deferred purchase price. So actually a fairly simple structure.
Buy all the stock, hold it, and then the seller gets an aggressive earnout structure.
Yes, that's right.
Yes. So, like you alluded before, technically we're acquiring 100% of these companies. That's what's happening. Just the financing is what's 60% here, and then 40% the seller's taking a note, and so on. But we're going to be paying them off in 3 years. I'm making sure I'm structuring a deal where we can pay them off, except the guy that wants to stay on for 3 years. He's a very interesting guy. We're still having conversations. He wants an equity stake somewhere. We'll see if it's worth it. I'm still doing due diligence. If it's worth pursuing, I'm going to be sending a notice, and everybody's going to know about that specific opportunity, those specifics. But just to dive into the equity on what everything's looking like. So Bernt was going to be taking 10%, which is going to be fully vesting by 2024. And then I'm going to be taking 77% as president and CEO. Daisy, as our executive CPA, is going to be taking 5%, which is going to be fully vesting by 2024. Frank is going to be taking, Shane, Gerald, and Patrick are all going to be taking our position as non-executive directors with 2%. And just to emphasize the point again, the bonuses we're going to be taking from these initial deals as we acquire and go will not be based off those percentages. It's going to be based off participation, and the exit will primarily be based off those percentages, but not the IPO. The IPO, we're going to be taking very, very different roles, and everybody, if you're staying on board, will take hold those percentages as well at the IPO, basically. So I think I'm going to open the floor to any comments for anybody, and any questions, announcements, and anything anybody wants to share.
Chitindi, could you just comment just a little bit more on how you see the earnouts working? Is there kind of a standard formula for how you're trying to organize earnouts from the sellers?
Earnouts from the sellers. Yes, there's a standard that so if I'm understanding your question right, how we're paying them off in the 3 years, correct?
Yes, and to what extent is it based on them achieving certain, milestones or growth objectives? I'm imagining that those are all part of the formula.
Correct. Only for one specific deal. Again, the guy that wants to stay for 3 years, he wants to discuss a few milestones he needs to achieve, because this company is growing pretty quick. It has, I think, 2-digit growth right now. So he wants to negotiate a deal based off that revenue. And that's what we're currently talking about. Everybody else will not stay for more than 6 months there's going to be a transition period, and we're going to have management that's going to be running the company. Our executive CPA and me are more than likely going to be playing active roles in these companies initially.
So even the ones that are doing the 6-month exits, I'm assuming that there is some performance, some company stability issues that are tied to their exit in 6 months, and a portion of the earnings for the sale. Okay,
yes. So even before acquiring these companies, we have to determine the stability of the revenue. That has to be determined. Hence the not more than 15% clients and so on. So we're going to be doing a lot of that due diligence with the accounting firms and the law firms and then the transition. More than likely, we're going to be focusing on how to operate these businesses and maintaining the employees that know how these businesses work exactly. And the owner, too. Some of them want to stay as employees.
Frank, maybe it was a little bit of a misstatement, earnout. It's not strictly speaking an earnout. It's just a pure deferred purchase price. So as Chitindi is explaining, you're buying 100% day one. The seller is not retaining equity. They are getting debt, which is a note saying you'll be paid out over this period of time for your equity. So we need to kind of, as Chitindi is suggesting, you need to get it right. We need to get it right day one for 100% acquisition. But that approach, really simplifies your acquisitions. Earnouts are complex, hard to negotiate, hard to manage, right. And it gives you that equity upside in the future. So it's really all about doing a good deal day one, just like any 100% acquisition. The sellers are just, as Chitindi was saying, financing that acquisition with debt for you. What's nice is as a practical business matter, if you were to discover, for example, fraud in the business or something, you probably could hold back some of your repayment of that debt, even though we're not going to have any strict measures on what that holdback would be. Does that make sense? Does that?
Yeah, that definitely makes sense. There's just, often, I've never seen an acquisition happen where some discovery didn't occur after acquisition. And to have some kind of handles that influence, kind of final payment, based on negative discovery, is often part of these deals. And I'm just wondering, how much contemplation has gone into that.
Yeah, I think so just extrapolating, I think we'd have a standard, kind of market purchase agreement with indemnification.
Yeah.
We wouldn't have an escrow. We wouldn't need an escrow arrangement in it, but we would have a right to bring claims if there's a breach of the agreement. And effectively, our claims could be offset against the note where we owe to the sellers. So it's kind of a nice structure from that point of view. So I think we would, we would seek the standard protections you would in a purchase agreement.
Yeah, great. Excellent.
Perfect. Any other thoughts, any comments, suggestions? Okay.
How come you aren't doing escrow and offsets and stuff like that? It sounds like it's all in indemnity and there's not a lot of reps and warranties or offsets or money set aside in escrow to cover those.
Sorry,
I'm just wondering why. I'm just wondering why it's not.
Yeah, the 40% seller financing is effectively your escrow.
Okay.
So you don't need an escrow because you haven't paid 40% of the price yet to the sellers. So the way to look at it, right, is an escrow you give to a third party and they hold it for you. Your right. situation here is even better. You've got the 40% and you're holding it.
Right.
And you just never pay it if there's some problem on it, some problem that
Right.
was unexpected, as Frank was saying. And so, but in terms
There's a
of
big
your,
non-payment remedy. Yeah, got it. Okay. That's-
yeah,
Okay, and to answer your question and just to expound more on that. So Ted did a great job on that, but there's one more component that to make it a real deal, there's something that you know as a lawyer called consideration. Some monetary figures need to change hands at some point. Of course, that's if we're giving them, of course, cash in 60% of the deal. But in a rare case, in some cases where we're acquiring these businesses for 100%, where the seller is financing the business completely 100% with no commercial debt, we have some situations like that. What would apply in your situation as far as escrow consideration would be, we would give them $1, just so it's a real transaction, and then they finance the rest 100%, and then we're paying them monthly, just like a loan, if that makes sense. Any other thoughts and comments? Awesome. Yeah, so at this point, we're getting a consensus that we would all vote to go forward with these deals. Correct? Okay. And then we're granting our executive directors to run the business until the next board meeting, to spend potentially up to $500 million in M&A. I took it all the way up to $500 million because we came close to getting a $100 million deal under LOI. So there's a lot of M&A activities going on, and 500 million would be a good number.
So Chitindi, who is putting together the paperwork for, kind of describing the, the roles of the board members and the directors, and the executive team? Is that a part of the, kind of the bylaws documentation, or, when does that come into being?
Correct. So we're going to put some bylaws in place, especially when we start to engage the board that's doing a lot with the blockchain stuff. There's certainly going to be bylaws. That's what's going to govern the nature of what we're going to be doing here, if that answers your question.
Is that something that Ted would put together?
Correct. So we're going to be working with Ted's firm. Ted's going to bring a team on board. He's our point of contact at the law firm, but there's a team, just like we have a point of contact at the accounting firms too. And then as well as Pat. Pat is our internal lawyer. We're going to discuss these things internally on future board meetings, and then forward it to external law firms.
Perfect.
so for example, I think, I can work with Pat on this, but I think we just need to know the equity breakdown, who owns your corporation. And we could set up a very simple corporation in Delaware quickly, and have you appointed the members of the board. And so, we can get that set up soon at relatively low cost. That would be my suggestion.
That totally makes sense. There's some fiduciary obligation that the board members should have to the company, and having that spelled out, made part of the legal documentation is key.
Yeah, so I think there's that fiduciary obligation, and then the board members will also want the protection of limited liability.
For sure.
So that'll be good. And I think the one thing at some point soon you want to keep in mind is directors and officers insurance. When do you get it? What do you want? That's kind of probably the other key element at some point. Probably that's an element that could be added right before you conclude your first acquisition.
Correct. And we did, Bernt also mentioned that, and we're definitely looking to that in due course. Any other comments, suggestions, and announcements?
Just a question. Do we want to put a shareholder agreement in place at the same time we file for the articles with the state of Delaware?
Ted.
It's a very good question. I was hoping that really everyone just votes their percentage interest. And at least for the initial period that is good enough. And that works.
That could just be a resolution. That could just be a shareholder resolution. Keep it simple.
Yeah. So I think that might be good initially. The problem with shareholders agreements is they can get complex.
Right.
And then another problem will be that if each of you are the individual shareholders and you're parties to it, then I can't represent any of you individually. I can only represent you somehow collectively. So I need to be told what the shareholders agreement is going to say approximately. But anyhow, the idea my initial thought is that, decisions of the corporation will be run by the board. Majority on the board approves decisions, very, very classic corporation. Anything that needs to be approved by shareholders is a majority vote, and keep it simple, at least in the initial stages.
Right. But in this case, all the shareholders are board members and all the board members are shareholders. So, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Right.
So in the case that you're a board member and also a shareholder, especially if you hold a substantial piece of the corporation, you definitely want stuff in place initially, like non-dilution and so forth, so you never lose your percentage.
So, I think we could even include this in the
That's right.
governing documents. I think your preemptive right is something that we could easily add. That wouldn't be too complicated.
Yeah, just put it in the articles, right?
Yeah, that's a good point that you have. That would seem to be a good protection.
Yeah, like
if there's some other basic ones that just seem obvious, we could deal with those already now.
Like Chatendi, in his case, he'd want definitely non-dilution. I mean, you could set the percentage of if you own X amount, there's non-dilution and drag-along rights, for instance, so that the majority shareholders can force the minority shareholders to sell in the event they want to sell the company. Stuff like that.
Correct. And just to make it clear, the companies we're acquiring are not taking any sort of stake in Lightyear directly, just if that's what you're trying to say.
Right, and also putting you in a position where you have control as a majority shareholder, so you don't get diluted by new shareholders in the corporation and things like that, and setting the structure up so that the majority shareholders, or for whatever quorum you might need, can make decisions in connection with what the company does with itself in the future, whether it sells all or a portion of itself, or perhaps even makes large business decisions.
Correct. Okay. Outside the corporate structure, any other concerns, thoughts, questions?
Just one other quick observation. This could turn into a long conversation, so I don't want to trigger that. But anti-dilution provisions are very toxic for outside investors. Any new outside investors that might want to come into the picture. And I kind of learned the hard way with Kleiner Perkins that for a substantial outside investor to come in, they would want to eliminate anti-dilution. So it's from their perspective, it's always best to not have that. So I just raise that. There's probably many ways to work around it, but if there is any expectation of venture money, outside funds coming in, that can be really problematic.
So I think I was taking, you're absolutely right, Frank. I was taking anti-dilution to mean actually just preemptive rights, which means simply that if the corporation ever is raising equity, everybody who's a shareholder has a chance to participate in that equity offering pro rata.
Preemptive rights, yes.
And so that would be an anti-dilution protection. It's an anti-dilution protection that people will only have if they're willing to put up the money.
Thank you. We're
and so yes, but you're right. There could be very complex anti-dilution provisions that would have the effects that you're talking about. I wasn't thinking of that. I was thinking of a simple preemptive right.
Right. And dilution, just in general, the way I'm structuring everything and the conversations I've had with Ted, based off the strategy at Lightyear, primarily what we're doing is we're a commerce company, and we have a relationship with a DAO, a decentralized autonomous organization that's going to have a ledger, and Lightyear has a stake in that. So that's a meeting that we should not. This is a conversation we should be having in the future. But that's how we're going to raise capital, through those tokens at the DAO, the 20% that Lightyear is going to own. That's how we're going to raise most of our capital, and that's how I'm going to perform most of the acquisitions when we approach the level of gunboat diplomacy. That's the strategy there. But I'm not sure what the regulation is going to say about using the money from selling those sort of tokens to use an M&A. It's not very clear what's happening with regulation there. And hopefully they make it very clear so we could polish that strategy. So as far as dilution there, yeah, that's the only risk we're exposed to, regulation. If regulation allows what I just said, we're gonna maintain most of our direct equity at Lightyear, unless we have to not take that approach and then physically raise capital from VCs and so on. But that's down the line again when implementing Gunboat. But for now, we're focusing on the initial 5 to 10 cyber companies, and then we can start having these future conversations.
All right, so Shatindi, should I do the ceremonial declaration of adjournment?
Correct. So we have voted. Just to make we've made it very clear that we voted on everything, and me and the executive, which is just basically me and Davey, right now will be running the initial companies that we're about to acquire until our next board meeting, and potentially spend up to 500 million acquisitions.
So I guess to make this official, we should just call for a vote, and we just do an audible, from the participants in this meeting. Ted, does that all seem like the appropriate ceremonial approach?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So let's just call for an audible vote to approve the general description that has been provided on how things will be managed and governed. Obviously a lot to be developed over the course of time here, but we've got the basic outlines. And so I would like to call for approval for the structure as presented. So all in favor, please say aye.
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 All right, I think that's unanimous. Was there anybody who is opposed to what we've discussed? So the motion carries. So we are now in full motion. So with that, Shatindi, is there anything else you'd like to add to our conversation this morning, or shall we declare adjournment?
Yes, that was everything, and then we can declare adjournment.
All right.
Hey, Shatindi?
Correct.
Can we maybe discuss in person board meeting date while everyone is online right now?
Yes, so more than likely, I'm not sure when we're going to be closing most of these deals. I would love to close a few of them before we have our next meeting. I will, because everybody complained about the notice was short notice. I feel 11, 12 days was enough. It's apparently not. So I will be giving at least a month or a month and a half, if that's fine with everybody, to have our next, before having our next in-person board meeting. If that's fine. Any suggestions, what timeframes work?
Normally the boards, I sit on some large company, they literally lay their board meetings for the full year out in advance. Of course, this time you need to have some extraordinary meetings, but if you're basically going to have 4 board meetings a year, the companies I'm involved in both in Europe and the US, they lay it out for the whole year in advance.
Correct. And that we're going to get to that point initially after closing these initial deals. This was the initial meeting, and I'm very, very much aware of that structure. As for now, I'm not very certain when we're going to be. The LOIs are 90 days. That's all I can say. The 90 days. So within that 90 days, of course, we're going to do a few acquisitions, and then I would be in a position to call for a board meeting and discuss new business, as per se. So after the second meeting, and then I'm going to be very, very much aware of how often we should be having these board meetings.
Okay, so for now, you're saying the scheduling is really contingent on getting a few deals wrapped up, and then we'll get a regular rhythm established.
Correct.
All right, any other closing comments? So with that, will anybody make a motion to adjourn?
That's the move.
All right, and seconded by somebody.
Second.
And we now have the motion, and all in favor, aye.
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 All right, meeting adjourned. Hey, have a nice day, everybody. We've got a beautiful spring here in Seattle, so there's actually hope on the horizon.
Awesome. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye all.